Chris Raptus Real Estate. Welcome to episode 61. Greetings. Now, none of this is financial advice. Do your own research. And I want to talk about how funny it is that the media is basically reporting a lot on property at the moment. And all I'm saying is that they're full of shit. They always have been and always will be. So where was the media, during the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years for some of us that have been in property for 20 years? They were never reporting on property. It would be once a week, it would be clearance rates, it'd be the most boring take, and it was never, all about property and housing affordability and, the agenda that the media are pushing at the moment, like they give a shit about the housing affordability in South Australia is just absolute crap. So, to sit here and say that, next year is going to have a blow off top and, that the growth may come down, it is likely, especially if those interest rates don't come down because they are on pause at the moment. So if they put, when I say they, the RBA, the rates to the floor, which is possible, very likely, depending on what's happening in America. They're extremely dovish with the rates at the moment with Jeremy Powell and Donald Trump putting a lot of pressure on the Reserve Bank, or should I say the Fed in America. So the Reserve Bank will tend to follow what America does. And so that being said, I don't necessarily believe that the growth figures will halve like they're saying they will, and units having more demand because, houses are going to be less affordable. So, I think it's certainly been an interesting spring. We've seen a lot of properties come on the market. It's been a late spring as well, in my opinion, and it certainly had a few waves where we saw a lot of property come on board, sell quickly. Then we had that rate pause. Then, obviously things like Melbourne Cup, school holidays, all these crazy things, grand final, and, things sort of slowed down a little bit. Then they picked up, 77% clearance rates after that, pretty consistently. And then we've seen a lot of those properties, try and get settled before Christmas. And now I'm seeing people still putting their homes on the market, trying to get settled in the new year. So yeah, average home sale price now, $950. That's pretty normal. I predicted double-digit growth. I think we will fall maybe short of that by the end of the year. And I feel that the reason that we may not have the Santa rally, we may not, is that, the rates have been put on pause. So I feel that a little bit of the market has come off the boil a little bit, but the smart buyers are still buying. And, if we do have that predicted 4 to 6% growth like they're predicting, then properties are still going to do very well. Rental yields, I feel will be strong. I don't feel that the rents are going to pull back like they're saying that, they're going to plateau out. I think that Adelaide's going to have its run because the Labor government is certainly spending a shitload of dough on the roads, and they're trying to expand the state, which, that's fine. That's good for property, it's good for the state, but like I'm saying, the media is just funny, and that's what I want to keep the focus on is how funny it is how the media is just doing nothing but reporting on property now. Well, where were you guys years and years ago? So don't believe the bullshit that they say. The media is the media, and them telling everyone that we're going to have a blow off top next year. These are the same people that told you that we were going to have a 40% crash during the COVID-19 pandemic. Right, so nobody knows. It's all speculation, and as human beings, we love to speculate. But what I can say is that I still feel that if the migration is still going to be strong, which we know it will be, and you're getting your relocations from interstate, which is happening because Adelaide is still a safe haven. It's a conservative market, always has been. And in that sense, we're going to see property prices continue to push up because we're going to have relocations where people are just sick and tired, of paying exorbitant property prices, as we've seen in, beautiful capital cities like Sydney, where Adelaide is a lot more affordable. That being said, and I've been very vocal about this, is I don't feel our wages are strong enough in Adelaide, although that the government is spending a lot of money. We also have some of the highest unemployment rates in South Australia, and we also have one of the biggest, if not the biggest, public sector in Adelaide, South Australia. So what that means is that basically most people are on a government job in Australia and they rely heavily on the government. So as long as they're spending and they have a government job, well, property prices will continue to push up. For the others that are small business owners, I feel that they're certainly doing it tough. Not a lot of tax breaks for small businesses. So if you're a small business, kudos to you. Support local. That's what I've always said. Support small businesses. It's the livelihood and the backbone of this country, and also it is the livelihood of most South Australians as well. Either people are running their own business, or they're working for themselves, or they're working for somebody, or they're working for the government. They're three crucial factors. Prediction for next year. I feel that unless there's a black swan event and the rates go up, which there is talk of that too, nobody really knows, but I do feel that they're going to have to do something with the rates. The more the properties increase, the more the government makes with taxes, the banks end up earning more money over 6 and 7%. Interest rates, which I still feel is just totally ridiculously too high. In America, we've got talk about 50-year loans. You can fix your loans in America, which means that you could fix in at 4% for 30 years. So I still feel that the Australian banking system is broken, and when I say it's broken, because we're such a small country, and because our asset prices are so high in comparison to some of the other parts of the world, and the interest rates, in my opinion, are very high. The banks are making a lot of profit. And if you don't know how much profit they're making more money than some companies like General Motors, Ford Motor Company, which has been going around for over 100 years, providing vehicles across the planet. And someone like a bank in Australia with less than 30 million people is making more profit. So, it puts things into perspective that I feel that the rates certainly should be reduced. I feel that the banks have made enough money over the years, and, they really do bully the government when it comes to their policy. And that's why I just feel that I think that people in the RBA are dickheads. I feel that they don't know what they're doing. They have to stimulate the property market and bring the rates down. Enough's enough. Housing affordability is obviously going to be impacted. However, I feel that the banks have made so much money over the years with their high interest rates, and that we need to keep the economy going, because there's so much money that the government can be spending, whether they're in deficit. And I just don't feel that that's sustainable. So, that's why it goes back to property prices. Property is such a big asset class, and everything, in my opinion, revolves around real estate. Tradies, banks, small businesses, everything is around the property market, right? GST, stamp duty, all of that jazz. Revenues for councils, emergency services levy, you name it, water rates, everything revolves around property. So the more the property market increases, the more the economy expands. And that's just the way it is. Unfortunately, for those that aren't in the market, it's going to get harder for you. That's why I've been suggesting to my clients to buy now. Don't wait, because I truly feel that because we have a rising market, you're going to be paying more for your properties next month and the next month after that. So that's always been the advice. It's been solid advice. I hate to be the deliverer of that news. It is what it is. It's the government's responsibility now to deal with what they want to do with housing affordability. But as you know, the councils have not made it easy for development in South Australia. The committees have not made it easy for development in South Australia. Just take one look at Melbourne, and you look at the city skyline, and you look at the development and the beautiful architecture that Victoria has to offer. And that Melbourne and Victoria have a lot of flat land, a lot of usable land, developable land, and so do we in South Australia, right? We have a lot of flat land that we can develop. So I feel that as we're seeing the generations change, because that's all it is we're seeing generations change, the old mentality of, keeping Adelaide a conservative, pristine, quaint town. Unfortunately, if we do that, we're going to be like Luddites, right? We're going to be a dodo. We're going to be left behind. We have to be, in my opinion, a capital city, right? That is with the times, that blends the old with the new, and we on the world stage, and people consider Adelaide, South Australia as a place to go to. Queensland is a perfect example of tourism booming, where people love to go to Queensland. They have thousands and thousands and thousands of people going into Queensland every day. And that helps small businesses. It helps the economy grow. It helps so much because the ecosystem works because people are spending money. And in my humble opinion, I don't feel that Adelaide, South Australia has the tourism. I don't feel that it has the legs to be on the world stage at the moment. And a part of that is because we've been inhibited. And hate me or love me for this comment, but it's those cardigan wearing folks that have inhibited and complained and restricted development. We have to be with the times. The roads can't, they just can't. They're at capacity, right? We're at that breaking point where we either expand and try and, grow, or we contract, and we've had, very little growth for a very long time. And that's evident. The market in Adelaide, in my opinion, has gone up, around that 2000, it pulled back, then it went back up again. Then we had GFC, pulled back, and, that's what it does. It's a slower major capital city, if I can word it that way, as opposed to the other capital cities in Australia. And that's why we haven't had the double-digit growth. That's why people are coming to Adelaide, South Australia, because it's, unfortunately, for some, it's the sixth most expensive city in the world. And that is because we've been a sleeping giant, in my opinion, and it's now our time to shine. So what does that mean? Well, it means that I believe that if you're looking at strategic positions in property, I think we're going to see a lot more hotels. We're going to see a lot more development. We're going to see the skyline change. We're going to see more superannuation money come into South Australia. We haven't seen that wave of super money in Adelaide yet, right? Because a lot of the sites in Adelaide are held by families that have owned these properties for many, many generations. They're boring families. I hate to say it. You're boring guys. You're not developing some of the best sites in Adelaide, South Australia. And as we're seeing the old farts, right, die off, and the young, next generation are picking up those properties, they're taking on those fortunes, and they're developing them. So it's just a matter of time now where things are changing. It's a great place to be in Adelaide, and what you will also see is your executives that leave Adelaide, they grew up in Adelaide, they went and chased the big smoke in the interstate, Melbourne and Sydney, Queensland per se, and then, they're looking at coming to relocate to Adelaide, and that's your upper echelon of the market, and they're buying the big properties because they're coming back to Adelaide because they want to ground their roots here, because it is a great place to raise a family. I've always said that it's a perfect all-rounder city where our weather's great, we've got great wines. I don't have to sell it to you, but that being said, we need to have the right people in place to develop Adelaide in a tasteful manner, right? This isn't about just putting any tower up. Let's be clever and let's be sensible with our development. Let's get our hats together. Let's develop some of these wonderful, excellent sites in Adelaide. Let's bring in the migration slowly, fairly, skilled migration, people that want to work, people that want to contribute, and let's see this beautiful city grow. So yeah, that's my opinion on the whole marketplace. Where do I see the growth? Where do I see things? Well, more than likely, we're going to have that growth of that 6 to 8% consistently, I feel, next year. If things keep going the way that things should be going, in my opinion, and we don't fuck this up, and we can do this in a very well controlled fashion, I believe Adelaide's going to be an excellent, wonderful city to get around in. We've got a few hurdles that we have to fix, but it doesn't take much for our leaders to go interstate and have a look at Vic Roads as an example, and look how wonderful the roads are over there, with congestion, with trains. Unfortunately, there's probably going to be a time where our roads will be privatised. I hate to say it. We've been very spoilt in Adelaide, and part of that privatisation, unfortunately, will be more speed cameras, more mobile detection cameras, more AI cameras. What they're going to do is they're just going to tax us to oblivion now, unfortunately, and follow suit of the Eastern Seaboard, as we always have done. I've always said it, we're 20 years behind, if not more, of Victoria and Sydney and Queensland per se. So that's my prediction. I don't feel that it's going to be as much doom and gloom as they're predicting next year. Let's see what happens, and look forward to doing the next video. Take care. Cheers. Bye.